Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Father's Day. And on this Father's Day, I'm giving out gifts to all the wayward and unfortunately, well, I don't know what their problems are, but they need a firm and stern talking to. The individual that concerns us today on this Father's Day, on this, the 18th of June in the year 2023, we are going to help Whatifalthist feel a little more guided by a wiser, older man. Perhaps we could be grooming him. Let us groom him, shall we? Us, the left, us leftist, us far left. We all love Biden, and it's all just Trump and Biden. It's one guy versus another, good versus evil, weak versus strong. This is how the simple think. And my young son, Whatifalthist, you dummy. Let's look, shall we, at the work that you've brought us. Let's look at this and let us grade it and send it back to you. This is a gift to me as well on Father's Day, for I have been watching Whatifalthist from my Batman shadows, and what I have observed is troubling. Not because what he speaks is true, but because the unfortunate young man in his unfortunate relationship with his father, obviously, you don't get kids like this without daddy issues. All right. And these are not the young Catholic girl misses her dad and, young men can take advantage of. Not that type of fluke of society. I mean the kind where the dad champions. In this case, it's probably some weird Christian. I think he says Quaker, but who knows with this guy what's real and what's not. What is real, what we can tell, in spite of what he says, either way, what he says is not going to get us to the place that we understand him. So what we can look at is his behavior and his positions, because they don't align with reality. They must, therefore, align with somebody else's reality, because he's trying to think critically. He's trying to suss out big boy issues with the big guy world that he's trying to live in. But it's not quite working. So let us consider, shall we? Let us consider as men what these foolish young children are up to. And on this Father's Day, let us give them a talking to. What you got for us, brah? What you got for us, brah, son? Son, brah? The video we are reviewing is called The Coming Far Right Backlash. I will not tell a lie. What I need to say is that I did watch a few minutes of it, and it was just so... I wanted to see this kid get it right. I wanted to see him use his love of history and his cumulative knowledge and his experience out here, attempting to clash with, as he would put it, people of equal academic blah, 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 something or other. I don't know. Doesn't matter, because he's not a smart guy. He's somebody that wants to be seen being smart, and not just smart, right? Because it's not aligned with reality. It has to be the type of smart that the church dad or whomever is at the heart of his poor upbringing. Maybe his dad was religious and an upstanding guy, and his dad passed away at a young age. Something happened. I don't know what, but something did. And I hate to pick apart at people for their unfortunate lives, but this guy, he's just asking for it.
History of the world moves by pendulum. There is progress, which is...
And apparently, as is the case, par for the course, playing the part, this technology is always messing me up. Dang. Chinese. Blame the Chinese again. Can't blame the Canadians for everything.
Is why we aren't giant toads living in salty
what's that? He's making the concession already? He's making the concession?
The history of the world moves by pendulum. There is progress, which is why we aren't giant toads living in salty tidal pools anymore. But it's nowhere near to a straight path, with countless ups, downs.
See, that's a concession. As I recall, his debate with Vosh turned out that you're trying to tell me that there's some type of progressive idealization of betterment and securing of material goods. Something there's something that people are doing along this line of history that it's not just a bunch of separate stuff. What he's not a postmodernist anymore. Oh man, this is a concession. This is growth. This is the promise of growth. And then he just says, but listen.
Downs and countervening directions. History does move in a direction, but I can swear that it's not one that you, or even I, can really understand.
Of course you can't. You're demonstrating that, but I can.
The modern left's favorite phrase is that they are on the right side of history. However, what if I were to tell you that that wasn't true? That the next 2 decades belong to the very opposite group, the far right. From looking at the patterns in history and trends, I believe that the pendulum will swing back in the other direction for the next few decades.
Why?
Although I myself am a right-winger, it would be a lie for me to say I'm not terrified for how far the pendulum might go in the other direction.
Now forget establishing what right-winger means or the left thinks, because he's about to make the fatal mistake that all these dummies make. He equivocates readily and eagerly. He's going to say that Biden and all of the woke corporate media and all of the people online in their various states of ignorance and agitation, all of it's the same thing. All of it's the left. See, this is how you know these guys are barbarians. They're barbarians. These Christian American barbarians that are going to destroy our country. See the thousands of hours of commentary I've already issued for that one. But it's not this way, dumbass. If you've taken any history classes like in real life, not at some strange Christian private institution, but like a real school, don't have to be a good one. It could be a community college, right? Just one that teaches, the basic truth, like tries to keep it not an alternative timeline narrative. Not a what if Wolverine was made out of Jell-O. I don't know what school this guy's going to, and I don't know what they're learning, but it would probably be closer to that based off what he's given us now. Man, what the hell does right mean? What the hell does left mean? It's just how he thinks, how he sees these two sides. That's it. There's no interests. There's no. I mean, he made the concession that there's some type of progress through time, but he also alluded to the Hegelian dialectic. Let's see if he can clear some things up for us.
For many of you, this will shatter your conception of the universe, and I'm excited to see what the comments are for this video. Well, why are we wasting time? Let's get started.
Estrogen is killing men. Estrogen is the primary female hormone that's stimulated by the brain into production that influences your
He will only respond to people that will validate his desire to be seen.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, and it would be great to try and understand some of it, but it frequently feels difficult to find the time to read or study in daily life. We're all strangers to the world we live in. That's since we're so familiar with our current time that we have no frame of reference for what's strange, wrong, and all that, since we don't know what makes us special. We're fish in a pond that have never seen the outside world, and even more so
I thought this guy was like a Christian or some, super, prayer guy. Right? He's a right-winger, and he hasn't established what that means, except kind of hinting that he thinks it's one team versus the other, and that's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy. Why do I think the right's going to have a couple decades of authoritarian rule? Because we're all thinking about it, and we're all vilifying and demonizing the other as the left, all the same thing. Man. He's like, I don't know what makes us, none of us know what makes us special. Yeah, we do. We have self-awareness. We have an awareness of time, of many, many things that are not biologically necessary. So I don't understand why someone of the faith would express that opinion.
Those fish are mostly made up of water of the pond they live in the same way we make up and cannot be separated from the era of history we live in, the culture we live in, and all that. Thus, it's incredibly funny to see the left portray itself as the rebels and the little guy. Well, in fact, they are the ruling class today. In the modern West, the left is the establishment. You can easily see this in that Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Donald Trump have all had legal action taken against them.
Again, as if they're all on one team and all of the Justice Department and all of the media and everything is the left, right? No. What the hell? How? You can see this by famous people that actual people that work and live real lives don't give two fucks about, except for Donald Trump, because we have to, the story about him. Andrew Tate, who the fuck cares about Andrew Tate other than these incellular post-Gamergate shitheads? Like, they do not constitute even a majority of the voting percentage. Or majority. They do not constitute even a percentage of the minority of any voting population. Now, whom considers themselves the right, or Republicans, or MAGA, or, other designations, yeah, we get that. But not like this. Not this, not like this. Not like this. Jesus, God, I have no idea.
There's no left-wing equivalent. In my own story,
no left-wing equivalent. What the hell is he talking about? It's like, so Ford's gay raptor, and Joe Biden, who's the most corporate, institutionalist ever, left by definition, my good sir, means anti-institution. Right means institution, tradition, convention. Left means deviation or hopefully a progression forward, out, away from those conventions. Now, there are different ways we could parse this. Of course, Europe has the fascism to communism right-left model. America... it's not ironically, America uses the French Revolution system of how people sat relative to the king when Louis XVI was still hanging around. Left, right, what the hell is he basing this off of? It's like shirts and skins. Like, you're the other side. Well, actually, it's more complicated than that, young incellular fool. There are many different camps, and some of them are actually in different countries. So I don't know if you're just assuming that it's all the same thing, but let me tell you about reality, son.
My videos on completely innocuous educational topics like
the
American
left is out to get him. The left, all of us.
Telling me why. The conservative satire site, the Babylon Bee, has this really funny segment about how a very large amount of American conservative leaders have been kicked off Twitter. Funny, but at the same time, people like Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, lots of officials for the Chinese Communist Party, which is committing genocide.
He made this after Elon took over. Are you kidding? That none of this is all absolute fantasy. I'm going to be quiet because it's all fantasy so far. I'm actually only going to talk if there's a fact. All right? I'm only going to stop if there's a fact. Otherwise, assume that this is all wrong. And we can prove that. We can back that up. I'm not going to take time to put it in comments. We're going to watch it, and you're going to look at it with me to see that this is all false. This whole right-left narrative, like that's all we're seeing here. And he assumes that there's Andrew Tate. He's the right, even though he's not political. He's just a sex trafficker. Megalomaniac who has weird looking eyes. And who else did he name? Jordan Peterson, the Canadian Daily Wire co-host of Hate and Bigotry, brought to you by Pseudo-Intellectual Inconsistency. Yeah, there's that, but he's a Canadian, right? And he's more a Hollywood elite than the other guys. Okay, it's all wrong. We'll stop if there's something true.
As well as even Vladimir Putin's Russian government Twitter account have maintained, showing a clear ideological bias. The dominant social institutions of academia, the media, Hollywood, most of the news, the bureaucracy, large parts of social media, growing parts of the military, the largest corporations and defense contractors, significant parts of religious institutions, in the United States, the presidency, and large parts of the legislature are...
Actually, that was something true. The perceptions in academia do trend towards reality, truth, cumulative understanding of things based on observation and peer review, right? And there are different disciplines. There's law, there's economics. You should try to go to school one day, young man, and learn some of this stuff. But if you don't have time, that's fine. I get that. Not everyone has the luxury or privilege of going to school. Some of us would love the opportunity to go to an accredited university. We could actually learn something. But if he's an example of for Father's Day, my head might explode. Wow, this is so much stupider than I could have imagined. This is the guy that says, I'll only debate somebody that's on my level. I guess he's looking for like Grimace or something. I'm not real sure what his level is. Like Bullwinkle or something. It's not, I don't understand anyways, academia. You'll find that people that are educated do trend toward the left if you're considering anything that's not MAGA left, right? If they're voting Democrat, traditionally, it's because they understand that a society needs to mind its own society to succeed. It needs to regulate and contribute to and coalesce around sectors of the economy and bring forth the best understanding, like in a technocracy. Like think about it like a technocracy. Is a technocracy the left? It's not a very good technocracy. We've got Pete Buttigieg as Secretary of Transportation. He's not the most qualified guy for that. And anyways, yeah, college, the smart people tend to agree with smart things. That's not a sign of the left taking over, dumbass.
Are run by left-wingers, and often very radical ones at that. Although the right occasionally wins elections, the left runs every major institution in society. The quote-unquote...
Without establishing what any of these words ever mean, tell me what a left-winger is, other than just everyone that thinks Andrew Tate is what he is. Basically, you look at Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and say, well, they're bad guys that are grifting based off of essentially like a fundamentalist and bigoted fetish of gender roles. I mean, right? Trump's a little more complicated than that, but I mean, it's the cruelty is the point, that type of stuff. Because Trump is certainly not a Christian, right? You got the evangelical vote, and that's a little complicated. But essentially, fundamentalism. So if someone is opposed to, and it's not even good fundamentalism, it's inconsistent with its own, virtues and values. It's inconsistent. It can't make its own case other than the left, the wokes, and all the corporations, CNN, motivated by capitalism, right? That's pretty right wing. Institutional stability is what right wing is. It's not those that call Jordan Peterson an inconsistent grifter. That's not what makes a leftist or a radical lefty. Please describe what any of that means.
Rebels and oppressed now run society. As befits an old entrenched elite, they crack down on dissent and try to spread their ideology.
The left has never had power, ever. You got like Ilhan Omar, Cory Bush, Bernie Sanders as a senator. I mean, like this is not power.
They've tried to turn every movie, TV show, all art classes in school and university, and every other
wokeism is not leftism. It's a corporate already,
you don't want
gig
to see it, or you're old enough to be detached from the main part of the society.
A demographic.
As I said before, they silence those who disagree with them and have ever-increasing standards of purity, used to instill fanaticism in their ranks. This has been the way the world has been since the 1960s, and people often don't realize how much of a shift it's been. Our society had a series of massive social shifts that occurred in the 1960s, which I think are on the same degree as the rise of Christianity, Islam, or a major world religion. This is include trying to push for total male and female social equality, the decoupling of sex from baby making and leading to free love, the idea of complete racial and ethnic equality.
Okay. Let's see what kind of retardation is on display here. A lot of these don't make sense if you spend more than a single what? A lot of what? What? A lot of what? The changes that have happened since the 1960s. For a single second thinking about them. For example, every nation in the world is built off war. How can you just freeze borders? Imagine how broken the world would be if we did that in 1800. How does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. Is this what he's saying if you think about these for a second?
All people are equally intelligent.
How can the sexes be equal if women need to have children and men have testosterone and need to be driven to oppress? This guy did not go to college. He did not go to college. Oh my God, I don't think I can get through this. I don't think I can get through it. This is the most ridiculous set of questions ever. How can the sexes be equal? We're equal because we have agency and we use our environment in creative ways to change outcomes. We build houses, we make clothes, we invent things, we do things with our agency, we use tools. That's like saying, how is everyone equal when one guy has a chainsaw, another guy has a bulldozer? It's like, it's not about everyone's exactly the same all the time, no matter what they do. That's the most childish, hypothetical. Oh my God. And the borders thing, what is he talking about? The borders are so militarized. Biden is up to border security. This guy really doesn't know anything about anything. There's too much to get into here. Oh my God. This is 3. How can all ethnicities be equal? This equal word again. This is like a fetish with this guy. Be equal if some have luckier geographies, histories, etc. What is luck? What is the standard? I mean, I assume he's talking about material conditions. In that case, welcome to Marxism, buddy. You know, like, how can all ethnicities, I mean, the construct based on our histories and cultures, these are constructs, right? But like assuming that they're set, right? And people can't make decisions to, marry into a different ethnicity or change as the times change or have some world-changing event. Like putting all that aside and assuming all things equal, how can all ethnicities be equal? He's like, gotcha. What the hell? Nobody said they're equal. Nobody that knows what they're talking about says they're equal. People are born into different socioeconomic strata, and that does determine outcomes. So if we use the means of security that we have at our disposal in the wealthiest country in the world, that, by the way, also has the global standard currency, at our disposal, and austerity measures, contractions, and worry about the global economy are putting that at risk, because I don't know if you know this, but the dollar is way overextended. Far into deficit. It's a bad scenario. China wants to see it break apart. There's a lot of things we should worry about. All things are not equal for the sexes or ethnicities or anything. This is the point. You look at the differences and you strive for equity, where we all share in what's available. Now, if you want to start limiting availability, like he's talking about borders, talking about 1800, how can you just imagine how broken the world would be if we did that in 1800. Freeze? How can you just freeze borders? It's just not even the same idea. Every nation in the world is built off war. He said, for example, every nation in the world is built off war. That's not a necessary function of like nation, lowercase n. What is that? What is a lowercase n nation? Is built off war. In that case, with the lowercase, it's not. That's not true. But let's say it is the conquest, right? That's not what establishes a community. Now, this is really complicated stuff that he's not only missed how complicated it is, he's paid attention to the fetishized delusional story that he's raised with, or I don't know how he got here. I'm really confused about how someone could come up with this and simultaneously say, who's on my level? Who's on my level? I don't want to just talk to people. I just want to find someone on my level. Okay, how can you just freeze borders? Imagine how broken the world would be if we did that. That froze the border. So he's for open borders, but he's on the right? I don't get it. How can the sexes be equal? Maybe I missed something. Maybe he's like, this is what the left thinks or something, because these don't make sense. So let's see.
Which in Western countries grew up in the easiest era of history ever, as I talk about in this video, has meant that the 1960s cultural norms have been pushed ever since, and now have reached the point of absurdity. The message that the baby boomers pushed is that judging someone else is the worst thing a person can do, and
I think I skipped forward, not back. Sorry.
Fanaticism in their ranks. This has been the way the world has been since the 1960s, and people often don't realize how much of a shift it's been. Our society had a series of massive social shifts that occurred in the 1960s, which I think are on the same degree as the rise of Christianity, Islam, or a major world religion. This is include trying to push for total male and female social equality, the decoupling of sex from baby making and leading to free love, the idea of complete racial and ethnic equality, that war is inherently immoral, as is empire building, that all people are equally intelligent and we just need better socializing to create a utopia. This is a bigger...
Whoa, no. All people are not equal, and none of that is true. Where is he living where he's getting these ideas from? This man has 528,000 subscribers, and this video has 912,000 views. It has 44,000 likes. That was the most mush-brained bunch of agitated nonsense I have ever come across. There's nobody asserting the things that he just... there's nobody that is asserting or espousing or championing those values or philosophies. And the changes that happened in the 60s were not just exploration of mind and sense. which are good things, right? If this guy's a Christian, I don't know that how anybody could be if this with these opinions, with these hateful and limited. This guy's a sociopath. Like, he's genuinely disconnected from actually empathizing or understanding anything around him. But he seems eager and ambitious, which just is it all a troll thing? Is it just a game? Like, apparently it's working for him, but no, the 60s were a culmination of a lot of things, technology and the exchange of information. The like you said, the baby boom, which was after World War II. There was a lot of stuff that happened in World War II that traumatized society in a lot of different ways. Picking the pieces back up and appreciating the opportunity to live in liberty when the cold shadow of fascism, through the Soviet Union now, this is fascist too. It's insane to me that the Russian propaganda narrative says that they're the opposite of fascism when Stalin was, by definition, fascist. But the many factors that make up the societal changes. Technology is key among these. Technology, and, I hate to be like a Marxist person and all, but material conditions propel us along that dialectic, according to Marx, and it does seem to be the case, more efficiently than any other means. It's not ideas, in other words. Or you could say ideas give birth to the technologies, but these are advancements, my man, advancements. These are good things that women are allowed to think for themselves, not be equal, like, can you lift this weight? We can all lift the same weight. It's literally retarded. It's like your brain is not grown. It's been like a wet blanket has been put over it, retarding its development. The genders and races are equal because we have agency and inalienable right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Now, other people would want to take that from us, but this is the equity. This is what we're all sharing in. We're equal in the eyes of the law, not in point of reality. Like, who the hell? Nobody's saying what this guy thinks the left is saying, and the left, in his opinion, is Biden, all of the universities, all of capitalism with their corpo wokeism that real people know is a sham. We know when somebody's pandering. The 60s were a culmination of a lot of things, and a good thing too. Nixon and his war on drugs and a lot of racist Jim Crow and Southern identity politics. Yeah, because the Southern would be like, I'm a white man and we worked hard for this. So it's like, George Wallace segregationist, into Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. People were exchanging ideas at a very fast clip at a time where most people had a fresh understanding of how bad authoritarian regimes can be. Conquest and imperialism are not good things. He's saying they're good inherently because they produced society. But in society, as society develops, if it develops ideally, if it develops too close to the ideal, then it's the left that is corrupting the goodness that was there before the technology. But war is good because it creates advancements in society. Oh my God, this is insane.
Fanaticism in their ranks. This has been the way the world has been since the 1960s, and people often don't realize how much of a shift it's been. Our society had a series of massive social shifts that occurred in the 1960s, which I think are on the same degree as the rise of Christianity, Islam, or a major world religion. This is include trying to push for total...
So are those good things or not? And he says, how can you decouple sex from babies if society needs babies to function, and then you get lots of single mothers? I feel bad. I feel bad. Like I can't keep doing this. Look, wow. It's going to be cruel of me to continue. This is me making the mature and, oh man, this hurts because I do kind of want to make fun of him and I want to see how bad. Let's just skip to the end to see what his summation is. I'll probably have to watch Faith. Okay, Faith, this is what I'm confused. He's saying the shifts in society that occurred in the 1960s are on par with Christianity, Islam, and I don't remember the other thing he said. But that if he's a right winger, and we're about to find out with this faith section, if he's a right winger, then that would presume some type of fundamentalist orthodoxy of religion. So if he's equating the advancements or the shifts in society in the 60s to that of the advent of these religions and how their effect on society was, like it moved. If he's trying to equate those things, the value system is in opposition. So okay, let's see what the summary is. And I'm going to try to be nice, but this is one of the most scarily delusional yet confident bits of insanity. It's just too much. It's actually killing my brain cells and making my soul go into a fetal position, because not just because of how wrong he is, but because of how many likes and how. Again, they're not going to be able to vote to change things. There's not enough people like this to vote and change it. But they think that the reason that they're not succeeding, because they also think they're most people, right? This is how sociopaths work. They think they're most people, and if they don't get their way, then it's because someone has devices and designs against them, that they're working against them to keep them from succeeding. And that's also human nature to feel like people are out to get you, especially it's coming to mind that I've made these claims, but I also am very vocal about Israel and China and both parties, and I piss people off individually. So, and I try to check myself. I try to test my assumptions. The more extreme the claim, the more so I deliberate. Or reiterate my explanations. It's my process. It's a process, and it's ongoing. But this guy, it's more like the process is an application of his sociopathic delusions, devoid of any real excitement. He's just telling it. Okay, without going down a rabbit hole and staying, as they say, stun-locked for the rest of Father's Day, let's just sustain a moderate amount of brain damage and try to survive, live to fight another day. But we're going to talk funny because of the brain damage.
By just being as annoying as possible. And I don't think that's the intention, but that's what it looks like sometimes. Feminists must realize that men hold all the cards of actual physical force in society, and historically the way women have gotten things from men is by seducing them and making the men fall in love with them and then giving them whatever they want. Because whenever women try to compete directly with men, they have to lose, and I don't know why modern feminism doesn't understand that. I don't think the future...
What the actual hell? This is just a train wreck. These are multiple train wrecks. Melted, braided, squished out, cut into strips, braided again, stuffed inside of a donut, fried in the lard of Donald Trump's murdered prostitutes, and then put on a plate. It's such a mess. I don't, and I think I'm implicated in crimes just by looking at it. He just doesn't understand why women don't understand that. Feminists, his respect for, if he's now I need to find out if this is a guy of faith, because if he is, then this would part of the ethos of Christianity in particular is appreciating God's creations. To see the beauty and the magic and you don't have to be a fundamentalist. Einstein and Spinoza thought this way. This is the Spinozan approach. But for him to have so much disdain and also to work that hard to maintain an absolutely ridiculous argument, because what about guns? Guns equalize pretty quickly. What if the woman's got a machine gun? Bikini girls with machine guns, that's a Cramps song. Bikini girls with machine guns. Oh man. And women will always lose. I don't know why that's not true. And he's saying the only way, see what I said about sociopaths? If they don't get their way, then they assume there's someone making designs on them. It's a binary. It's either they get their way and they're thinking about how awesome they are, or they're not getting their way because someone is actively and very simply, it's like, for them, it's like Occam's razor. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. Is keeping them from it. And they're doing it in not just a practical, effective way, but a sinister and malicious, perhaps foolish and absurd way. And if they didn't mean it, it certainly looks, if they didn't mean it to be that way, it certainly looks that way, right? This is the argument I'm getting. He hasn't grown or developed in the time since he was out here before. He has actually regressed. Wow, on his level. Does anybody debate with me that's on my level? Wow, maybe him and President Sunday should go on a brunch date, have girl brunch together. They're about on each other's feet. Sunday is much more intelligent than this guy, okay? There's no contest. But the sociopathic resentments and explanations of other people. See, both of them, I bring up Sunday because both of them will use somebody else's standard, if it's not familiar to them, as a tool to dismiss them, instead of saying, oh, well, that's a different style of expressing yourself, or it could actually be a different language. Instead of trying to think their way through it to understand the speaker's intent, they say, no, you're crazy, you're incoherent, things like that. And then have these super high morals, like they're on the high ground, getting to authoritatively dictate, if you do that, I'm going to do this. Sunday and the not so erudite, who's not cool either. Like everyone out here has issues, but this guy, this Whatifalthist guy, is really taking all the cakes, man.
Right is going to be very racist. And if you look at right-wing platforms today, they often have lots of people of color. Lots of the very most right-wing people I know are ethnic minorities, and most of the most right-wing guys I know are dating Asian or Hispanic women because they're more traditional. However, I do see a great degree of misogyny on the right that is developing, as an entire generation of young men have been vilified by women and are sexually frustrated due to the dating crisis. As Nietzsche...
Whoa. He's going to bring out Nietzsche now. Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. This guy thinks he's like some, these Joker incel guys. Oh, man. Yeah. I'm my heart and soul are aching for the fate of this world. There are very intelligent, bright, sharp people, always, at any year, at any time, at any point in history. There have been effects, things written, things produced, things made, lessons transcribed and shared and built on and developed. And then there is this guy's take on things. Man a man, woman a woman, that's the beauty. The beauty's in the simplicity of it. Man. Wow. Okay, tell us what Nietzsche meant.
Nietzsche once said, battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster, and if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. I worry that the right will throw away everything that it used to stand for in order to win this conflict. In these last two recent videos, I've talked about how some of the variables stand out for us to have the rise of Caesarism, or for us to lose the Republic. If we want to look to the Romans, their conservative backlash in the late Republic, which is the best parallel to our current era, was able to stabilize things. However, it was at the expense of their freedoms and everything that made them great. However,
this guy doesn't know shit about history. He really, really doesn't. And I would, if there was something there, see, I'm no perfect expert, but I know what I know. And we can also back it up. Let's take a little trip through Wikipedia. Let's use, a secondary source of someone who's able to, spin some of this together in a proprietary and neutral way. There are plenty of ways to at least establish a point of reference to share. And we could disagree and hash it out and do the work to try to find as much common ground as is possible. But this guy's take on Romans being conservative, these guys had multiple gods, right? These guys worshipped on their holidays divine frenzy and ecstasy and wine and drunkenness. Is he considering conservative just manly strength? Yeah, that's the problem. It's this contest between weakness and strength. And you've got all these incels thinking these feminists are out of control. Not true. Not true. It's not true at all. Speculating about power balances based off of what has come before, what the norms are, what the status quo is, how easily, like he said in the beginning, how very, very difficult, he said it's impossible, but it's more difficult, and some of us, not him, can actually, parse out some perspective relative to the past, present, and future. Now, of course, we're not absolutely sure, but that's true about everything. There's no deductive certainty in anything, perhaps except for Descartes' first meditation, I think, therefore I am. Error cogito sum, or whatever this Roman guy on the screen might know. Latin, not Descartes. Descartes comes later. But conservative Romans were able to right the ship. Is this what he's saying? What the hell does any of this mean? These are pagans. These are pagans. And conservatives are not just strong men. That's not what conservative means. Conservative means conserving the initial principles of whatever ethical framework, presumably the Constitution if you're talking about being an American conservative. But none of that matters to these people. But so let's listen to one more minute. But remember, these people are not representative of the whole. Even when we're talking about conservatives and MAGA people, they have issues. They're not great thinkers. They're hurting their society, they're hurting their fellow man, and they're claiming to be the moral ones. So there's no shortage of criticism for these Karens and Chuds and Chads and whatnot. But this guy and his incellular televangelical, you didn't miss much if I forgot to bring it over. It's not even good. It's not even a good edit, I wish I could compliment something. He likes to point out other videos he made. Oh, it's all genius. It's all genius here. Hey, Whatifalthist. Hear my voice. Hear me calling you. Hey, buddy. You're so wrong. It's so tragic. It makes my heart and my soul sad. And I am as left is left. But I am also conservative, as is conservative. Because I can imagine and I can empathize with people's rationality that brings them to the decisions that they make. And most people do not make those decisions based off the tribe and club that they are in. Not explicitly anyways. They're not, I'm a Republican. So take comfort, although it won't matter with the way the election dynamics are setting up. West is going to pull the black vote. A lot of the more progressive, anti-imperialist left. There's so many different divisions of what leftism and left-leaning and left-wing versus Democrat. There are differences, real, meaningful differences. The difference, say, between Noam Chomsky and Biden. That's not trivial, my man. That's not trivial. These differences matter, especially in comparison with the new left. Confusing, but the new left of the 60s. You're an academic, you'll know, right? So hopefully when I called you, you heard me. Listen, I'm talking to you, okay? You want to actually talk academic, history, philosophy, economics, theology, sociology, any of them. I get the impression it's got to make sense to you. It's got to be one topic. That's fine, man. That's fine. I could tighten it up. I can play it as academic and square as you want to go. But my heart is really, really aching for the confusion and disorder of soul that this individual is suffering through. And putting everybody else in his life, because his mom must be like, he might have lost his mom at a young age. I sense some kind of trauma loss, that something has created this problem. And it's not just his bad opinions. Like I said, empathizing with people's rationality. People's rationality is not always rational, okay? This is most likely is not completely rational. But the individual thinks that it is, and they are. Take criminals, right? Murderers. There are plenty of studies and whatnot out there on these things. They will profess to being a good person. Some of them may admit that they did something wrong, but it's tough to say if they're not saying that just because the incentive is to be seen as penitent. We have a patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist, post-imperialist society, right? These things that the hippies, the new left that I was talking about, say are true. But we are also other things. We are a post-civil rights, the things that happened in the 60s mark some very serious progress. But then you get through, and these technologies and such that are really finding a much more fruitful advent in the 60s, like radio and rock and roll and music, culture, going to the movies, which had been a thing since the 30s, but the 20s even, earlier, the 10s. But the sound and color and all of this is getting better. And also the products that people put out, Cecil B. DeMille and stuff, people can compete with the standard and raise it. And that's what we do. And that's a good thing. So uncertainty and difference and the feeling alienated, I understand. They're scary. They're tough. And I also understand that when you lose somebody in your life that's an anchor, and now you've got to start inventing certainty and security, we can contrive narratives that we're then obligated to because our egos, lend themselves to the effect. We're like, hey, it's me. People need to validate me. Okay, I understand many different ways that we could end up in this place. But this is not a thesis. This is not a demonstration of anything academic. It's not historically sound. It's not sociologically sound. It doesn't understand feminism. It doesn't understand the difference between even one person and another with the lights out and a voice changer on. This guy thinks the word equal means something it doesn't mean. He thinks the word border and religion and everything he's talking about. I really have to question what his foundational understanding is. Just basic working definitions. Obviously, his left-right dichotomy is busted, so they're wrong. They're wrong. But let's see if he can give us any insight onto the values of a faith in a conservative, conquesting. I don't know what his ideal society is. I just think that I don't know.
The same choice stares us down now. I trust the leaders of whatever movement concentrated among young men are currently watching this video. Listen to my words carefully. You can either succumb to our emotions for no real gain and lose everything we care about. Alternately, no matter how hard it feels, we can think about the things that matter to us and stand for them. Let's not burn our village down to feel its warmth. We might need the houses at some point. What can people on the right do to prevent this horrible...
Whoa. What is important to you? What do you value? If it's so important that it could help anchor you and secure you, which I don't think for this guy he has any values, but he believes in the people around him and he needs that validation. So he's reminding them of what he thinks what they feel very convicted in and want to embody. He wants to validate them so they validate him. It has nothing to do with the values, or else they would be out in front of this discussion. These are the values. These are the principles. For him, his principles are the left, as evidenced by Andrew Tate being persecuted. Not, sex trafficking or anything like that. And I could even understand a little nuanced discussion that he was a target for prosecution. They can get him on anything just because of, how he offends people. No, that's not how. There's more. There's actual criminality and harm in his wake, Andrew Tate. But boys that have, for whatever, I don't know if it's Adderall, taking too much Adderall. I don't know if it's being turned down by women, and these guys think that it's just like in TV shows and movies where girls go out and hook up. But if these girls hook up with them and they don't get married first, and the guys are going to look down on them, and it's going to confirm their bias about women being temptresses, and that's the only way to equalize. And instead of thinking about how power dynamics work and incentive structures and a built-in coercion between people that actually kind of helps equalize our agendas and get everyone what they need. When he's talking about don't burn the village down just for the warmth, we might need the houses later, that's good advice, but I don't think he understands it. And when he talks about values and anchoring themselves in such, he has no values. He has none. Now, I know I skipped a large part, and he would probably say, I went over this. No, you didn't, bro. No, you didn't.
Reaction and get the best one that I think we can achieve. It's having something that we actively believe in, rather than just hating the left. Hatred can only destroy. However, if you have something that you positively because they're more traditional. However, I do see a great degree of misogyny on the right that is developing, as an entire generation of young men have been vilified by women and are sexually frustrated due to the dating crisis. As Nietzsche once said, battle not with monsters lest ye become a monster, and if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. I worry that the right will throw away everything that it used to stand for in order to win this conflict.
Was that a moment of lucidity? I think if he is suggesting that he knows guys and he's describing other people where they all talk about this. Believe me, I know, I understand. I just got done. It's like a 3-week. I streamed every day at midnight on Twitch, and then I did a Sunday one on YouTube. I did this for about 3 weeks, at 3 to 4 hours each one. And I'm not like saying, oh, I did this thing that nobody else does, but I'm at least a little more versed in the rhythm and the myriad focuses, that help or hurt the presentation, the show, the stream, whatever. I've learned, a side note, but I've learned the most important thing that I think you can do as a streamer is engage with your people. But the quality of your people and their comprehension matters. So curating a good community is essential because you will be an extension of their values. And there's not, I think, our man here is determining that the values are really based on opposition, aggravation, phony grievance. I mean, I don't think he's gotten there. I really hope he does. Like, I've watched this guy online, and I absolutely detest his opinions, and I do think he's got some sociopathy, and I do think he had some trauma that had to deal with parents or lost loved one, insecurity, and I don't want to I don't want to come down on him. That is what propels these guys to the point that they're at. And although there aren't enough to really make a difference in any American electoral process, they can make a difference on the street violently by joining up with other people that call themselves the right, which include police, military, a lot of guys that are fundamentalists that would be all too happy to tell you their values. And they're fundamentalist and confused and patriarchal. So it makes sense to me also why people online, the leftist bread tuber Canadians, are like, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, you're this, that, you're that. But they're basing that, I'm learning, off of a patriarchal, misogynistic, and also complicity in like supporting a society that has police and military, right? And so that's not reasonable to call these people Nazis or fascists. But there are fascist elements, and the opposition to some ideologies are very Nazi-like. See, this is a complicated story, right? It's not just like the Nazis came to... Everybody's got their motivations. Everyone's got their contextual moment, time, pressures, and tensions in history. But the thing that equalizes us is our agency and the limitations that we're presented with. So if you're born blind, that life inside of you is still going to want to come out. And it's going to find ways to give expression to what's in here. As we mind our moral compass, it gets better. It gets more precise. The more we use it, the more precise it gets. And the better we get at reading it. So it's like the wolf thing. I'm mixing metaphors, but listen, it's like the wolf thing where you got a good wolf and a bad wolf in you. And they say, which one wins? The one you feed. That's the deal. The Nietzsche quote, I think, is a little out of place, but I that was a really strange deviation to hear him say these things about the left. Is he pandering? I don't know. It's confusing and it hurts my soul more than my head. My head, I think, has become numb at this point. We got a few minutes left. Let's go.
In these last two recent videos, I've talked about how some of the variables stand out for us of the rise of Caesarism, or for us to lose the Republic. If we want to look to the Romans, their conservative backlash in the late Republic, which is the best parallel to our current era, was able to stabilize things. However, it was at the expense of their freedoms and everything that made them great. However, the same choice stares us down now. I trust the leaders of whatever movement concentrated among young men are currently watching this video. Listen to my words carefully. You can either succumb to our emotions for no real gain and lose everything we care about. Alternately, no matter how hard it feels, we can think about the things that matter to us and stand for them. Let's not burn our village down to feel its warmth. We might need the houses at some point. What can people on the right do to prevent this horrible reaction and get the best one that I think we can achieve? It's having something that we actively believe in, rather than just hating the left. Hatred can only destroy. However, if you have something that you positively believe...
Cart in front of the horse. I hate to, I really want to get through this, and I'm going to make this quick, but what are the values? He's saying, let's think about what matters to us on the right. Well, shouldn't the shared values be the thing that makes you the right? Like, what makes you the right? What makes you anything without a shared culture value? And I'm willing to even give a little bit of nationalism to people. You're like, I love my country. There's another equivocation that I understand how people get there, but it's misinformed, and it's unfortunate that they think patriotism equals fascism is Nazism. It's all the same. You're here or you're here. And remember, this is online. Okay, this is online. This is not real life. There are other problems with the Karens and Chads and the Chuds or whatever we're going to call them. But their patterns and their limitations and their biases and our biases against them and all of these dynamics, variables, and factors are what they are. Some change, a lot stay the same. But what most certainly stays the same is we have more in common than we share dissimilarities. That might sound hokey, but it's true. We live and we die. We eat and we evacuate our bowels. We do the same things, and therefore that's a first rung of limitations. Now, women have more limitations because of like what he was saying. So feminism is understanding the disadvantage in the power structure that women have historically and conventionally are at. And, it's a conversation. It's not a binary. It's not this or that. So if you're going to think of the values, you're going to say, let me think of my values so I don't go off the deep end. But he thinks that we need other values on the right other than hating the left. Then I think we've isolated the problem. There are no real values there. That is the deal. It's just about hating the left, and they can't say what that is. It's just all the Biden and the corporate and the bad narratives that get nudged most certainly by Russia and China. They've been doing that since at least 2008. Russia especially. You know what I mean? Like it's a conversation. It's not a binary. It's not one answer, one way, done. It's understanding, it's empathizing, it's testing your assumptions and understanding really that we share more in common than not. We seek pleasure and we avoid pain, right? There's a page on Wikipedia that describes that as hedonism, but maybe I wouldn't tell you, let's do hedonism, because this guy would say, oh, I'm a conservative. What does that mean? That is the most important thing. If there is an ideology that you identify yourself through, and it is a choice. I mean, like, come on, the hypocrisy in how we'd blame other people for insisting on nuance versus the simplicity. We need to work things out. We need to pull up a whiteboard or a Photoshop or something, and we need to work through it. The values must be there first, and this is a central argument I make. This is true on the left in whatever capacity, and this is often true on the right. But they're better at being lockstep. Lockstep. I'm not real sure which the right descriptor is there for that. But my argument is. Excuse me. My argument is if you get two people say, I'm a socialist, you get two socialists, you two, come here. What does that mean? They might be like, I hate capitalism, right? They might get something right, but they can't express the values. They can't share in a similar cohesive ideology. It is really groupthink that we are being limited by now. We're doing it to ourselves, and we're letting media and things amplify and magnify these problems. And then we blame the media instead of ourselves for having created that. It is, I will give you a technology and a situation, society currently, that is beyond our comfort. It has moved faster than us. So it is almost, and AI is really on the horizon, and it may self-replicate, sooner than later. And talk about moving fast then. From the beginning, this is interesting for history people. Since day one of man, best we could tell, up to 2020, that's 1 zettabyte. 1 zettabyte of data. Everything man has said and done, released, put out, all the information, 1 zettabyte. From that point, every month we have added another zettabyte. So we went from all of human history blank to 2020, and then every month, 1 more zettabyte. So exponentiating our output in all the meta and, literal, all the ways possible. We have exponentiated our output, and we're heading for even a faster clip. So there's no argument about things like surveillance, data tracking, financial inequality, in other words, amassment of capital and how it's potentially used to coerce outcomes and maintain a status quo that appears to be stable, but it comes at the cost of social mobility, which was our greatest progress, a shared value to have social mobility based off of merit, like a true meritocracy, function, like accessibility to things based off of minimum cooperation, while people are afforded their autonomy and property. Okay, you cannot. This is a very popular thing online, and I bet you Russia because it's not Russian people. A lot of Russian people we have more in common than not. Okay, they don't want war going on either. What was I saying? Of course, we don't want war. War is a little distracting. Things that we want, things that we share in common, value, good food, good music. We like that, but that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about political prescriptions, being able to explain them, capitalism, something that Russia would like in the discourse. People on Twitter and things like that, in what these guys would call the leftist space, when it's not. It's a very superficial and limited, yet loud and amplified, magnified, and often quote tweeted societal fluke. It is not representative of anything that this guy is trying to pull together as just one like Biden. That is not Biden. So the Marxist weirdos online and Biden are not on the same page. But the Marxist weirdos that have permeated the Twitter space, if you don't kowtow to their, doctrine, which no two of them can say as the same, then they'll scoff, you're a Nazi, you're whatever. And then, of course, you go to the other side, be like, I'd rather be able to tell fart jokes and not have to think so hard about things that nobody's actually caught. It's easier to be easy and rather than uppity about everything. And a lot of people who think of themselves as leftists online, which is really just LARPing. They're just, I LARP harder than you. The thing that I'm getting at is they all favor this abolishment of private property idea. No. You can't do that. Maybe you can. Maybe we could create a legality where, and I didn't think this up. I wish I could remember who said this to give them credit. But instead of property, it'd be possession. So after you die, then it's not your property. And of course, that's not. There are contentions that should come up at that point. You say, well, shouldn't generational wealth be afforded to families that work together so they can advantage? Yes, absolutely, but not to the extent that it is at. Now, the next question there would be, what authority would ensure that outcome, and would we be contributing to an authoritarian, framework then? And yeah, so we would. We need to talk about these things. Absolutely, of course. But it is a conversation. It's not a binary. And it's certainly not a left-right binary based off the superficial, aggravated novelty acts that we are given as an example on the most superficial, realm available, political social media. So private property, some of that, is a little frustrating when you try to talk about it online. Everyone's just like, of course we want to abolish private property. Listen, the shared values should include autonomy, liberty of conscience, decision-making. That means you can hate people. You'd be like, I hate you. In my head, out loud, I can say these things. This is another thing that the lefty online LARPers, they're like, no, they can't handle the idea of somebody hating somebody else. Well, I mean, it's not ideal. I'm not encouraging people to hate. But when you fetishize hate as if it's this ultimate crime, then welcome to pre-crime, insanity. You cannot control people's process. You can make laws about them harming other people or their property, and then have a system that allows you to receive damages to compensate. Again, not ideal, but it allows a more equitable palette of results as an extension of our society and the way we run it. So values, yes, we should look to establish values to share in, but not just because people have died and bled for these rights and liberties. And the narratives that are out here right now, like what this guy's bringing us, are the threat. It's not the left, okay? Biden is not a leftist. We could get into politics, but there's no truth to this. Corporate wokeism is a corporate thing. It's not a political persuasion. It's pandering, and it's bad at that. There's so much we could talk about, but I do agree with the values thing. I agree with that more than more than one might know. That is the thing. It's kind of ironic that this guy that is the most wrong guy in the world kind of like stumbles into, it's there. It's sort of like, I want to see him get it. The tribality, I don't know if that's a word. It's a no good. It's a no good.
Then you can build something new. Values like the truth, which keeps you from being completely unmoored from reality. Values like humility, which prevent you from doing something insanely stupid because you're on an ego trip. And the right needs to dig deep to figure out what values it actively does believe in. And we have to protect our freedoms and protect that America has always been a country where people of differing ideas and backgrounds have been able to live and share together ever since our foundation. One of the best case scenarios is some kind of broad-thinking New Deal scenario, where we have a forward-thinking conservative president who's able to build a coalition together of both people on the right and moderates and even some leftists. This would be a leader of Roosevelt or Lincoln's caliber who can bring America through this turbulent period while maintaining the republic and our heritage and values. I think this scenario is plausible because the most radical factions of the right weren't able to win a severe victory in the midterms, thus meaning the Republican Party is now having a crisis of leadership in which effective and good leadership can rise to the top. America's problems are not that fundamental. Long story short, our economy will probably be in very good shape in a couple decades, and as long as we don't lose the things that matter to us right now, we have very good foundations as a country. A problem with modern American conservatives is that they're too reactive, in that they spend all their time trying to stop what the left is currently doing. Well, the left has a very active moral center, that being diversity and inclusion, and that whole woke prism. You know when you drank way too much and then your friends asked you why you'd said all that retarded shit, or like why you were hitting on a girl that's actually a solid 3, and you think, holy shit, like I shouldn't have drunk that much. That's the equivalent of what the conservative movement could do, except the stakes are much higher. Let's not have as many drinks, and let's keep responsible friends around us as we're drinking.
Anyways, I got to say that over again. There's actually truth in what he's saying there. It's a shame that it's wrapped up in this labyrinth of confusion and misapprehension about political ideations, and our history, right? Our history and what he attributes to the left. The idea of woke, right? What I was saying when we were muted there, I said nobody calls themselves woke. That's not. I mean, they're starting to, and that ground is starting to get a little nebulous, but that's a reactive irony off of reactive. And now it's like legitimate, you know how this stuff works online. It's like a trip through bizarro world back to, it's like a Cinnabite tour. Like, come this way. No. You're not going to survive. But anyways, woke, right? It's such a damn shame because if we look at that in good faith, right? This word was created essentially by the right wing to malign and characterize, exaggerate, and malign, their political opponents. Andrew Breitbart, and his politics are downstream of culture. So if you change the culture, you change the politics. This is the move there. There's a conservative talk radio. There's Reagan. There are these different points, of course, that create, like our friend there in the beginning recognized, history moves. It goes up and down like a dialectic. You have a sexual revolution, then you have prudence. You have this, you have that, and this is going on. And if you go back to many points, and especially if you consider different locations, you don't have to go back. You just got to kind of go over. Sexual promiscuity is relative to what the standards are on sexual prudence. That relativity has been the spectrum is wide. So it's not a matter of like us in one place, in one way, having conservative versus liberal, and that's not the right dialectic there. That's not thesis, antithesis. It doesn't matter. What matters is the synthesis. And we do have a good foundation in the United States. And fortunately, the majority of us do agree with that and understand why and how that is such a thing. So I got just one more thing to say about this. Woke, if we were able to look at it in good faith, simply means being awake to the implications and realities of history, economics, sociology, it's just being awake to reality, to the implications of history. To say that black people haven't suffered in the past few generations relative to the unfortunate stigmas and power dynamics that Jim Crow and antebellum Southern, politics were. These situated people in different ways, places, and created different circumstances that predicated outcomes, right? You change the circumstances, you get different outcomes. CRT is a good thing, and conservatives should agree with it. They should also know the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a socialist, a Christian socialist, not a Soviet socialist, okay? We should talk about what these things mean. If we are awake to reality and the implications of history, and we understand, like SCRT says, that race is a construct. Genealogically, we're the same. Black people, and I'm just going to say black and white, although the range, spectrum, mixes, etc., are very different. We're not like, oh, no Phoenicians allowed up in here. That's not how that works. I mean, maybe it does in some places, unfortunately. It's very easy to play binaries. Us, them, you, me, this type of thing. Up, down. It's a fine line between that and dialectics. But the synthesis is what saves us from the tribal fatalisms. And woke, if we can pull it off, we don't need to call it woke, but just maybe understand that if Jews were holocausted by a nationalist, murdering, insane, the Nazi thing is a one of a kind, all right? One of a kind. One of a kind, terrible. If this happens, then presumably the Jewish diaspora might feel the need to seek an extra measure of security. And in turn, although it was needed for maybe not the state of Israel, because they base their claim to Israel off a myth. The Torah is not real. But aside from that, that's different. Maybe we'll do that later on the Sunday stream. We're going to do one more stream before we go to refinement stage. These events, incidents, reason, brutality, morbidity, all these things that shock or compel or inspire or whatever are going to have reactions and counter-reactions that, have signifying sequential chains, a genealogy of ideas. I'm not talking actual genealogy, but genealogically, black, white, the same. And just a couple generations ago, doctors said black people can handle more pain. Their skin is different. Or we think because, I could code switch real quick and be like, Tim, don't imitate other races. Fuck that. I code switch. We're nothing but code. You move to another country, you're going to develop a little bit of an accent. You might even say something like this. You might go, I'm full Jordan Peterson now. Or you start hanging out with Alex Jones. Alex Jones, oh, happy Father's Day. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Being goofy, I gotta get to do some other things. But if we were actually woke, it's such a shame that this word's been stigmatized. That'd be a good thing, right? It's not a lifestyle. It's not a doctrine. It's not a dogma. It's just, recognizing that, recognizing the plight of black Americans in their many, many, many ways and centuries is a good thing. Instead of pretending, if we talk about it, we're going to feel guilty, so we're going to pretend America's nothing but good. Native Americans, the list of grievances are long, and if we don't address them, there becomes not only an inequality of material and access to resources, public goods that are, the public is only this group, not only that, but you also have an inequality of tension for thirst for vengeance. Like those tensions build. And the incels that our man is talking to are really getting fueled off of their testosterone, just their regular being a bored dude, as nature's produced them, in a world of delusions and echo chambers in this post-Gamergate fetish of simple explanations of left, right. In this environment, this is why they feel like their grievance is legitimate, and it's not. But it doesn't matter that it's not because they feel like it is. And that produces a tension that requires, in their minds, vengeance or justice. And the longer it goes without validation, the tenser it gets. And in effect, you've got an inequality of people at rest and people seeking a resolution to tension that in this case is not real. And as far as the world wars that are approaching go, those will be and are currently really, but will continue to develop into a contest for not land, not resources, but who gets to say what reality is. That will be the contest. So may we continue to decouple from our tribal persuasions and delusions, and continue to climb the mountain, to pursue and maintain as much Gnostic impression as you can, to get that divine wisdom. Understand, pursue self, you understand God. This is the same thing. Created in their image. That means our awareness, who we are, because God is not a sensorial being. But anyways, different story. It's an interesting one. If you pursue self, you pursue God. And the more you do that, the more you understand, what this is. It feels good to know who you are, to know what we are. We are all alienated just by, being in a world that has pain and temporality and entropy and all that good stuff. So, in addition to doctors saying black people's skin didn't feel this way or that, vocal cords, we think people code switch, they're going to sound this way or that. But really, we're all the same. It's environmental factors that produce these outcomes. And if you can recognize what's there, then that's going to be helpful. CRT says presenting features determine race, and race changes all the time. Think about this from a white perspective. Ben Franklin said Germans were too swarthy and therefore should not be allowed to immigrate in. There's that. And then there's like no Irish, no blacks, no dogs, where it's like Irish aren't white now. What is white changes all the time. And if you are someone that presents as white, but you actually have a black grandfather, then, it doesn't matter because you present as white, and, it is what it is. The way you're presenting features, which is fine, you present as white, that's one thing. But if you present as non-white, right, this is critical race theory and how laws, Plessy v. Ferguson, this is real stuff. It's not made up, woke, leftist, Biden, blah, blah, the bad narrative. That's not what explains this stuff. Right in the introduction to CRT, the college text developed by Derek Bell in the 60s, right? This is old stuff, and it's college material, and maybe we're all caught up on CRT now. But it's a great example to use because of how maligned it has become and how ubiquitously this mistake is carried, where it's going to make little white girls feel bad about themselves. That's not the case. Little white girls love to learn about history when it comes to their friends that look different than them. It makes it feel better. It makes it feel closer. This is not a simple thing. We need to have conversations. We need to talk about it. Reality is there. And like our friend said, truth, okay? If we really value truth, real truth, not Michael Knowles, Daily Wire, bend it up and sell it best way you can. I'll tell you about it right now. No inconsistencies. You cannot find inconsistencies and be like, well, we got to make it work because truth is supposed to be this. It goes the opposite. And thank God it does, because that's what has allowed us to produce the effects that we've been able to produce. They have perhaps exponentiated out past our comfort zones and now create a circumstance that doesn't necessarily favor the ideal. But that's what we're doing as pundits and political streamer commentators. We're trying to get to the bottom. Happy Father's Day. Man, Whatifalthist. I hope that if him or his friends that will report back to him watch this, they get to this point, because I started hard and ended soft. Everyone else is going to come hard. Nazi, fascist, they're going to go like that. Listen, we are all people, and we have much more in common than we have in dissimilarities. And the more that we value that reality, that truth, the more we can squash this Russian-generated, bad Russians, not Russians in general, people that work for Putin and the government, think Russian Karen. It's like, that's the type of patriotism that puts into the minds of these Canadian bread tubers that anybody that's patriotic is fascist, because they see these examples on their YouTube clips and they extrapolate out all the way, terminally, absolutely. And if we think that way, we're going to get into trouble, especially when we feel like we're in a struggle, life and death. And we will be. We've been creating this intensity, whether through off stage manipulation or not. Whatever the cause, the effect is what it is, and we create what we fear, and that shit is upon us. Upon us, it's upon us. Yes, and I've got one more gift for you on this fine Father's Day. What's that? Equality. What are we talking about, equality? Nah, ain't no such thing as equality. Not when you're packing heat. Not when you're packing heat. I'll see you next time, babies.